Most people believe they are free to choose, free to decide, free to think. But what if most of what you call choice is nothing more than a delayed reaction? Carl Jung believed that the human mind is not ruled by reason, but by forces hidden beneath awareness. Not logic, not intelligence, but the unconscious. You don't wake up and decide who you are. You inherit patterns, emotional reflexes, ways of reacting to the world that were formed long before you could question them. Your mind learned how to survive before it learned how to think. And survival always comes first. Jung warned that the greatest illusion is believing consciousness is in control, because consciousness is only the surface, a thin layer floating above something much deeper. Beneath it lives what he called the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is not darkness in a moral sense. It is simply everything you refused to become aware of, every desire you judged unacceptable, every emotion you suppressed, every impulse you were taught to hide, anger, envy, hunger for power, fear of rejection. You didn't remove these parts of yourself. You buried them, and buried things don't disappear. They shape you from below. This is why people sabotage themselves, why they destroy relationships they claim to want, why they repeat the same mistakes while promising themselves they will change. The conscious mind says, "I want something better." The unconscious replies, "I want what feels familiar." And familiarity feels like safety, even when it hurts. Nietzsche saw this problem from a different angle. He believed most people do not lack intelligence. They lack courage, the courage to face what actually drives them. Nietzsche argued that humans prefer comfort over truth, not because truth is unavailable, but because it is destabilizing. Truth dismantles identities. Truth forces responsibility. So instead, people adopt ready-made values, beliefs they didn't choose, morals they never questioned. He called this herd morality, a psychological state where individuals surrender their inner authority in exchange for belonging. When you let others decide what is right, what is acceptable, what is successful, your mind relaxes. No thinking required, no risk of isolation, but the cost is invisible. You lose the ability to hear your own instincts. Modern neuroscience quietly confirms what these philosophers suspected. Your brain makes decisions before you are aware of them. Milliseconds before conscious thought, neural activity predicts your choice. Consciousness does not initiate action. It narrates it. This is why your thoughts often feel like they appear out of nowhere, because they do. You don't choose most thoughts. You receive them. Your mind is less like a commander and more like a commentator. The brain evolved for efficiency, not happiness. It seeks patterns, shortcuts, energy conservation. Thinking deeply is expensive, emotionally and biologically, so the brain prefers automatic behavior, habits, routines, predictable reactions. Change threatens this efficiency, which is why the moment you try to improve your life, resistance appears. Not externally, internally. Sudden doubt, fatigue, distraction, loss of motivation. This is not laziness. It is your nervous system interpreting uncertainty as danger. Jung believed that ignoring this reality leads to psychological fragmentation. When parts of the self are denied, they don't vanish. They take control indirectly through compulsions, obsessions, emotional outbursts. The shadow acts when the ego refuses to listen, and the more moral, disciplined, or good someone believes themselves to be, the stronger their shadow often becomes, because repression intensifies energy. Nietzsche warned of this too. He believed suppressed instincts turn inward. They don't disappear. They rot. And when they rot, they express themselves as resentment. Resentment toward stronger people, toward risk takers, toward anyone who reminds you of what you didn't allow yourself to become. This is why moral outrage often feels so addictive. It provides a sense of power without requiring self-confrontation. The modern world amplifies this problem. Dopamine-driven systems reward distraction, not reflection. Endless stimulation keeps the mind occupied, so it never has to look inward. Silence feels uncomfortable now, not because silence is empty, but because it is revealing. In silence, the unconscious begins to speak, and most people don't like what they hear. This is why scrolling feels endless. Dopamine is not pleasure. It is anticipation, the promise of something better just one swipe away. Your brain is not satisfied by fulfillment, but by pursuit. Once something is obtained, dopamine drops, so the system encourages chasing, not arriving. This keeps the mind externally focused, away from itself. Jung believed real freedom does not come from controlling thoughts. It comes from understanding where they originate, from asking uncomfortable questions. Why does this trigger me? What part of myself am I avoiding? What desire am I judging instead of examining? Integration, not suppression, is the path to psychological strength. When the shadow is acknowledged, it loses its compulsive power, not because it disappears, but because it no longer needs to hide. Nietzsche called this process becoming who you are, not inventing a new self, but uncovering the one buried under fear, conditioning, and borrowed values. This requires solitude, not physical isolation, but psychological distance from the noise of others' expectations. Most people never attempt this because it means standing alone without guarantees. The mind resists this path, not because it is wrong, but because it is uncertain, and uncertainty feels like death to a system built for survival. But here is the paradox. What keeps you safe also keeps you small. The same mechanisms that protect you from chaos also imprison you in patterns. Freedom is not the absence of influence. It is awareness of it. The moment you see the pattern, it weakens. The moment you recognize the voice as conditioning, not identity, you regain a fraction of choice, not total control. But enough. Enough to pause. Enough to respond instead of react. Jung believed that enlightenment was not about becoming better. It was about becoming whole. Light does not eliminate darkness, it reveals it. And once revealed, darkness no longer controls from the shadows. Your mind is not your enemy, but it is not your master either. It is a system shaped by survival, history, and fear. Understanding this is the beginning of autonomy, not because you escape the mind, but because you finally see it. And once you see it, it can no longer pretend to be you.